So, in this video lecture, I'm going to talk to you guys about the two pieces of Gothic fiction that I asked you guys to read for this week. Obviously, other than Sir Bertrand, a Fragment, which I talked about in my other video. So we're going to talk today a little bit about Matthew Gregory Lewis's The Monk, which we have two excerpts, and Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley's The Mortal Immortal, which we have in its entirety because it's a short story. So a couple of things that we probably want to take note of. So these are very different stories, even though they both fall within the Gothic genre. The Monk is probably more of a conventional Gothic story, and I'll talk about why I say that in just a second, whereas The Mortal Immortal has maybe more in common with science fiction than with horror as a genre. But these are both horror and science fiction are genres that have connections to and roots in the Gothic. So we have a couple of important similarities here that are significant in terms of getting at the Gothic as a genre. So in both stories we have magic. Magic plays a huge role here. For instance, if we look at page 605, this is in Lewis's The Monk from chapter 8. The monk here is in Antonia's bedroom, and it says, this is the first full paragraph here, it says, "His first attention was to perform the magic ceremony as Matilda had charged him. He breathed thrice upon the silver myrtle, pronounced over it Antonia's name, and laid it upon her pillow." So, I mean, we've got here this very basic sort of description of a magical ceremony. We've got this talisman that keeps Antonia from waking up as Ambrosio goes to rape her, basically. So we've got the same kind of magic going on in The Mortal Immortal in the figure of Cornelius Agrippa, who is a famous alchemist. And alchemy, so for those of you not familiar with the idea of alchemy, it's a pseudoscience that officially was about turning base metals into gold. So the goal was that through the right combination of magic and science, and with a tool called the Philosopher's Stone, which of course has its own sort of Harry Potter resonances for anyone who's a Harry Potter fan, but with a tool called the Philosopher's Stone, you'd be able to take, say, a lump of lead and turn it into gold. But then alchemy gets sort of broadened out, and a lot of times it's used as a sort of general term for anyone using occult magic in conjunction with some kind of pseudoscience. So Cornelius's sort of goal in this story is to find an immortality potion. And he does this through alchemy, which is, again, this sort of magical pseudoscience. We also have a big component of eroticism here. Obviously, The Monk, chapter 8, centers on a rape attempt. And we've got this very sort of, I don't know, we've got almost this sort of romance novel, heaving bosom kind of description here. So this would be bottom of that same paragraph, first full paragraph on 605, describing Antonia. "The heat of the weather had obliged her to throw off part of the bedclothes. Those which still covered her, Ambrosio's insolent hand hastened to remove. She lay with her cheek reclining upon one ivory arm. The other rested on the side of the bed with graceful indolence. A few tresses of her hair had escaped from beneath the muslin which confined the rest, and fell carelessly over her bosom as it heaved with slow and regular suspiration. The warm air had spread her cheek with a higher color than usual. A smile inexpressibly sweet played upon her ripened coral lips, from which every now and then escaped a gentle sigh or a half-pronounced sentence. An air of enchanting innocence and candor pervaded her whole form, and there was a sort of modesty in her very nakedness, which added fresh stings to the desires of the lustful monk. So we've got this, again, very, this description that is on the border between romance novel and, I don't know, porn, almost. So, I mean, this is a big component of the Gothic, is that magic and the supernatural are often very sexy. And, I mean, of course, Bertha in the Mortal Immortal is the same, is described at times in the same kinds of terms, though there's not really as sustained a description of Bertha as this sort of beautiful, sexy, whatever, character. But I mean, Bertha is clearly sort of the object of desire here, the object of love. So we've got that. We've also got some significant differences between these stories. One of the biggest being where the sort of center of the sinister is. So this is another shared similarity that also marks a difference. Both stories have a sinister presence. They have a demonic presence, or a dangerous presence, or what have you. In the monk, it is obviously the monk himself, Ambrosio, who is the dangerous figure. But then we've also got this character, Rosario, who doesn't really actually show up much in the excerpts that we have. But if you read the sort of short critical introduction here, this is page 206, it says, after being seduced by Matilda, a female demon who has entered his monastery disguised as a male novice named Rosario. So, we have Rosario, who is a monk in disguise, or who is a demon in disguise as a monk, rather, a demon named Matilda. So we've got this sinister presence sort of at the back of the main character, Ambrosio. Whereas in the Mortal Immortal, we have still this sinister presence in the figure of Cornelius Agrippa, although Agrippa himself does not seem all that sinister, but there is a reference here. So, I mean, in general, Agrippa does not seem that dangerous, but he's associated with black magic, and he's associated with demonic spirits, and at the bottom, near the bottom of 987, when Agrippa offers Winzy a bag of gold, which I think actually is meant to sort of evoke, the Judas Iscariot figure of betrayal. But it says here, I felt as if Satan himself tempted me. So we've got this, demonic connection, this satanic connection, but then it's also, we also get this reference on 988, last full paragraph, where Winzy says, in spite of my most painful vigilance, I had never detected the trace of a cloven hoof, nor was the studious silence of our abode ever broken by demoniac howls. So we've got this weird quasi-satanic presence, quasi-demonic presence in Cornelius Agrippa, but it's not really clear that We never encounter an actual demon or an actual evil spirit in the way that Ambrosio encounters evil spirits in the Monk. So, I mean, that's a pretty significant difference, because we're working on sort of different levels of how directly sort of demonic things are. And that's important because today I think we're sort of less inclined to take seriously the idea of demons and the devil and things like this. Some religious people still do take this very seriously, but by and large I think in sort of secular humanism, in a secular society, we don't spend much of our time and energy worrying about demons. But this was still a society grounded in religion, grounded in Christianity, and so demonic presences, satanic presences, particularly someplace like in a church or in an abbey, as we get in the Monk, would be something that would be very, very terrifying to them. So, the fact that Shelley works in a level of sort of supposition and a level of suggestion, rather than sort of directly saying, and then a demon appeared to me, and Mephistopheles was there, and whatever it is a very subtle, but a very sort of cunning way of making the Mortal Immortal have this terrifying edge to it, even though it's not sort of an overtly evil story. Like Winsey doesn't go around and just sort of slaughter people or anything, or rape virgins or whatever it is, the way that Ambrosio does. But we're working on this level of sort of subtle suggestion of evil. So, good.